Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Season 5 video. And today, we are here for a breakdown of an amazing Episode 8. And I cannot wait to get into this one because I have so much to talk about and so many points to go over regarding this episode. From the voice acting to the direction to just generally the animation. I think I have a lot to give plaudits to JC staff for this episode. Now, of course, it's quite ironic that literally what I said in my reaction video is coming to fruition, where it's like the even episodes are really good and then the odd episodes are decent or good at best for some reason. I don't know why. From a light novel reader's perspective, of course, you guys are really enjoying the season so far, from what I'm gathering, at least the anime onlys especially. I think they're enjoying the season especially so, which I love, by the way. I'm really happy you guys are enjoying the season, because that's the most important thing for me personally, is more people getting interested and excited by Danmachi if you're not a light novel reader, because obviously as light novel readers we already enjoy the show and the general, approach to the series as a whole, when it comes to just the story and everything, we really adore it already, right? It's more so the anime onlys that we want to try and see if we can get them engrossed into, the other parts of the franchise, with like a Stray Record, Argonaut, and all these other stories that, unfortunately, if you're not a light novel reader or you're not playing the games, right, or the gacha games, you're not going to really look into it. So trying to transition those anime onlys into this is going to be super fun if, they still keep doing super well with the anime, of course, right? But coming back to this episode, I've got a lot to cover. So of course, if you guys want to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff, and let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know your breakdown of this episode. What did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy this episode? What do you guys like, dislike? What do you guys think you could have improved? What do you guys think they did exceptionally well that you weren't expecting them to do well in? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Now, first and foremost, I have to say this. This episode, I have to give a big shout out to the VAs, especially Matsuoka-san, Bell's VA. Bell's VA did a phenomenal job in this episode. The range he had from start to finish, and we'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment when you get to that scene, is great. But I have to give shout outs to also Hayden's VA and Hermes'S VA. Both of them did a brilliant job in this episode as well, and I have a lot to cover. I have a lot to cover in this episode, so let's get into it. Let's start from the very beginning, and then we'll go over each and every single scene and talk about what I think and how I generally feel about how they approached it in the anime. Now, I have read the light novel section for this episode as well, so I have a general idea of what they've cut and what they've not cut, but I want to reread it once again just to iron out some of the finer details for obviously the cut contents video that we will be doing sooner rather than later. And of course, remember, there will be a live discussion live stream tomorrow evening, so be sure to be there. We will be talking about this episode live, and that will be the last live discussion video we'll do for a couple of weeks, so keep that in mind. Now, this episode obviously starts off with Bell's training session and Hayden going all in on Bell, basically, right? Following in from the last episode, we know Hayden is up to something, of course, right? He was contemplating outside of Freya's room, right? After he met Horn. So there is something going on in Hayden's mind, and we'll talk about my theories and conspiracies later on in the video, because there's a lot more Hayden scenes that I want to try and cover in this video as well, that I think kind of puts his role into doubt, basically, as Freya's enforcer, effectively, right? There's some things that puts it into doubt, effectively. But at the start of this episode, right, I forgot how nuts he went against Bell, basically, and you can see in this episode, like, even the Freya Familia members were questioning his methods, to the point where the Gulliver brothers are stopping him. Hegni's like, "What the hell are you doing, my mortal foe?" And generally, even later on, when we get into, obviously, Hayden's reasoning behind it, of saying, like, he's trying to break Bell, he's trying to, get that last bit of energy from Bell out of his body, basically, by just absolutely demolishing him day in, day out, right? And he's trying to get everybody involved, and he gets everybody involved later on. Alan, Gulliver Brothers, Hegni joins in. He even asks Otaro to join in, which I found this very funny, because Otaro's like, "That's a little overkill. I don't think I will." Considering Otaro is the level 7 of the Freya Familia and he's the strongest adventurer in Novario, it is overkill. But the fact that even Otaro was like, "Yeah, nah, I'm not doing that," it was quite funny, to be honest. And I forgot that even in the light novel, when I read it way back when, I found it quite funny, to be honest, just seeing him be like, Are you crazy, dog? Hey, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. But no, I really like the scene, particularly for, again, the VA performance from Hayden. Just a great job overall from him. You know, the conviction he has, the tones. It just really works well, you know, and especially what he's trying to convince and convey to everybody, right? That's the most important thing, because what he's trying to do here is just trying to convince all the other executives as to why he's trying to, you know, beat down Bell, because everybody's like doubting him and being suspicious of him as to why he's, you know, knocking down Bell so hard when he is Freya's favorite, right? But there is a thing there going on where Hayden's like, you know, trying to basically convince them, clearly, right? But there is something more, I think, to Hayden than what he's trying to convince us and the audience and the executives in this scene, which I think is going to be very interesting to talk about in the comment section as well. One thing I will say, going back to the scene as well, and we'll talk about it later on as well once we get to a later scene, is generally the animation and art style for this episode. Top notch, absolutely fantastic. They really were in their bag when they were doing this one. Definitely cooked here, to be honest. Definitely cooked here. Hopefully they can maintain it for the upcoming episodes, especially once we get into the real fight scenes, of course, when Bell really does start to get going, of course, against these guys, now that he is aware, of course, of his actual past, right? That is something we'll have to keep in mind. Now, let's move a little bit ahead, of course, right, to this scene, of course, right, which I think was really, I appreciate that they kept this scene in the anime. It's something minor, a lot of people will ignore it, but it's just something I'm really appreciative of that, you know, they've kept in the anime, because obviously this is Welf, you know, he's still crafting that light armor, and you can see that even though, you know, Freya is charming the entire city, her powers are slowly, like, weakening her. She's doubting herself a little bit, especially based on the last episode, right? She's doubting herself a little bit, and this is the reason why, you know, it's, and especially also the other reasoning is Bell's connections to these people is so deep and integral that it is able to kind of fight its way through a little bit. Aina, for example, Welf here trying to, you know, realizing, almost not necessarily fully realizing, but coming to a realization that he was making this light armor for somebody who was really close to, somebody who was very much, you know, like he says, on the same wavelength with him. So it was super nice to see this in the anime as well, because again, it kind of shows that whole thing with Freya's charm slowly weakening a little bit, and also just generally as well, you know, Hestia trying to fester that sort of like relationship and to keep that in memories as well. But obviously we finally see Asfi coming to Hestia finally, because obviously one of the things, also this scene was crazy, by the way. Obligatory fan service scene, of course, right? Because I wasn't expecting it to pop out from there, to be quite honest, I'm not gonna lie. But I will say that this is this scene was really nice to see them finally interacting properly, you know, after, you know, Asfi losing Ryu, Hestia feeling extremely lonely with nobody else to go to, of course, right? But they talk about how Bell is being worn down even more so. And this is where I will say I'm really appreciative of how they are handling Bell's VA's direction in terms of how he has to perform in the scene. Because this is what I wanted to see from the anime, more so than anything else, especially in the last episode when the episode was titled Loneliness. This is what needed to have started in the last episode. This needed to have started in the last episode, but it is here finally, just Belle slowly losing that will to live kind of thing. Not necessarily will to live. Okay, sorry, I should correct myself there. The will to hold on to that past, to that desire, to his memories. He's losing the will to hold on to it, you know, he's not willing to fight against it anymore, you know, being worn down by everybody day in, day out, talking to Freya, eating, sleeping, as he says, you know, just being away from everybody he knows. This is what I wanted to see from that loneliness scene last episode, and it was in the light novels a little bit, and it's again what I was saying, you know, with the Anya scene, Ryu scene, Belle, every single one of them had their own form of loneliness in the last episode, which I felt wasn't really addressed extremely well. Like I said, probably the weakest episode to me personally in the last episode, because I felt like they could have doubled down on it really heavily so, but I'm glad that they did it here, because you can see the dead eyes from Belle, the just general, you know, Belle's talking, the voice he has. Again, Matsuoka-san, extremely well done here to just, absolutely nail that sort of tone that he needs to convey in this scene. Extremely well done. I will say as well, I'm really appreciative of the softer colors as well this time around, because usually when we see Belle with Freya, right, it's much brighter, it's the lighter, showing the light that Belle has. Again, it's a direction thing that I really appreciate. It's very underrated. A lot of people may not realize it, but we've gone from having a bright scene with whenever Belle's talking to Freya to a much softer scene, a much more darker scene, indicating the flames of his Hermes'S Freeze dying out. Now, I wish that they had a more of an imagery scene. Again, this is to kind of spoon feed people a little bit with the whole Hermes'S Freeze thing. When he says, maybe I should just give up, maybe there should have been a flame that was just slowly flickering away in his body, just a slight flicker of a flame that just, kind of almost lighting out effectively, indicating that his Hermes'S Freeze is weakening. I think that would have been a nice thing to add. Again, like I said, a bit of spoon feeding to people, but I think it's one of those things that I think would have been definitely appreciated by a lot of people, and it would have been a bit more of a significant thing, which it should have been, and it should be, because it's so, this episode does make it significant, by the way. I should mention that. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it would have made it even more significant. The key integral part of this episode was that, and it should have been portrayed even more, in my opinion, to make it even more special, more exciting, more exhilarating. Because then what they could have done in a later scene, right, when I say, like I said, when they do that small flame flickering thing, it should have burnt extremely bright and flamed up even more when he met Eyes later on in the episode, which I think would have been exceptional, in all honesty. I think it would have been exceptional to see and exciting as fuck to see. I think it would have been amazing. But no, it's good to see that this was being done. I really like the breakdown that Belle had basically right here. It was super good. It was super good. But I love that also they made sure to include the dialogue where it was like, okay, Seer is still that there in his mind where he's like, why did I reject Seer? What happened? What happened there? What did I do wrong? So yeah, I think it would be quite interesting there. But then, of course, this comes up, this Hayden scene. Now, this I want to talk about a little bit as well. I'm really appreciative of this being added into the anime as well, because it again kind of puts doubt into people's mind as to what side Hayden is actually on, because initially you see him trying to break down Belle, but then he's giving advice to Belle here, and then he does this as well where he's removing the guards from Belle as well. So it's like, what is he exactly trying to do? And this is my theory and my conspiracy theory, and of course, anime onlys, you can agree with me or disagree with me. Let me know what your thoughts are on Hayden, of course, right? I think what Hayden is trying to do here is he's trying to get the real Freya out as well, because of course we know that Freya's having some self-doubts. She's still got that Seer part of her in her, and that is the real Seer, like she says as well, in the first episode, that whole thing of, she doesn't want to be shackled by goddesshood or anything of that sort, right? We see her sobbing at the start of this episode 1. There is something there with Freya where she doesn't want to be Freya anymore. She wants to be Seer, but because she got rejected by Belle, she's now using that Freya persona to kind of cover her and use as a bit of a defense mechanism, while also trying to get Belle as well in her grasps, of course, as well, right? Because she's not familiar with anybody, doing this to her effectively, right? And rejecting her like this, of course, right? But Hayden may want to see the Seer come out, so maybe he's trying to get Belle prepared for that moment where he can get Seer back and, discard the Freya personality of Freya effectively, right? We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be very interesting as well. Now, we also have Riveria coming back into the fray, and of course, this is where they're kind of like, we have to prepare to charm all of them when they come back up, because of course, what we do know, and some people were actually asking this question as well, I think in the comments of my most recent reaction, or I think in a previous video as well, is why is Riveria, and what happened to the, adventures on floor 18? What exactly happened there? Well, the adventures in floor 18, well, they are also charmed. The Horn went down with other Freya Familia members and everything, and they were charming them on floor 18. The problem is they never went down to the deeper floors where the likes of Riveria and a couple of the other Loki Familia executives, second class adventure executives, went down to. Now, of course, once they come back up, they were getting ready to charm them. So that's the whole gist of exactly what's happening with Reveria as well. So keep that in mind, basically, as well. But now, this is where things get very interesting. Let's skip a little bit ahead, of course, right? We see, obviously, Belle, you know, kind of like, this is so, it's so annoying and so disgusting that that he's gotten used to the fact that everybody's just staring at him and, you know, looking at him with fear, basically, right? What I really like as what they did here is finally they revealed, of course, in this episode that Freya or Mia was part of the Freya Familia. Now, I will say that this was blatantly obvious in the previous couple of episodes, of course, right, with the way they were talking about Mia and everything, right? Mia was actually the ex-captain of the Freya Familia. She was the original captain of the Freya Familia until, obviously, Otaro came in and took over, of course, right? And she effectively, like she said, half resigned from the Freya Familia and is operating the Hostess of Fertility. One of the things that they kind of glossed over a little bit in the anime and, of course, you know, disregarded it a little bit. I wouldn't say disregarded it, just, you know, put it to the side a little bit, is the fact that for Mia to have joined the Hostess of Fertility, Seer/Freya was required to be employed. Like, Freya said to Mia that you can resign, you can run this Hostess of Fertility, whatever you want, this pub. I will be a part of this pub, however, as an employee, as a different person. So hence why Mia already knew about what Freya was doing and what Seer was doing, basically, right? So there is that, basically. But what I love so much that they did was, again, the way they did the callback with the music, with the voice. I literally it felt like I was watching the first season all over again, basically, when Mia was saying this line, basically. And it again is so appreciative of the way they did the same exact scene effectively, one for one effectively, which was super nice. And that kind of gets Belle going a little bit. He's like, wait a second, that something is wrong here. It's something's a bit of a miss here, which I really like. I think that was so, again, I'm glad that they did that scene, but I'm glad that they did that scene right is the most important thing. That is the most important thing. So it's good that they literally did word for word exactly season 1 and how they portrayed it as well. It's exactly the same thing, which is amazing to see. Now, this is obviously the scene that I think a lot of people are going to talk about in this episode, right? The Belle and I scene, of course, right? Because it is super, you know, integral to the overarching part of the series. And of course, in Belle realizing that he is not part of the Freya Familia, right? It's this, of course, Belle meeting Eyes, the reason for his Liara's freeze, of course, right? I think they did this scene really well. I think they did this scene a lot better than I was potentially expecting them to do, you know. To be honest, I personally think that it's hard because I feel like they were going to do it right. In my heart, I knew they were going to do it right, but my mind, you know, with obviously with the way, you know, how certain parts of the fandom are when it comes to, you know, how Eyes is portrayed in the light novel and anime, I was like, maybe they might not do a great job with this one. But honestly, no, I disregard all of what everybody else says. This scene was done really well for what they could do in the time they had, and of course the, you know, amount they could do, the restrictions with the time, the, you know, plot lines and how they had to progress through this through the anime. This was done extremely well, personally, you know. Again, the way Eyes made sure to hold his hand, again, really well. And just remembering him. Now, some people are saying, like, why is Eyes so emotionless in this scene, right? She's still charmed. She's still got that charm going for her. In my mind, this is how I interpreted it in the light novel as well, is that I felt like she was talking in a very robotic voice still and a very emotionless voice, but she was still remembering what, you know, happened all those years ago, or not years ago. I say years ago. It's only been half a year in the series. All these months prior to this, to these events, right? What's been happening? What Belle's gone through with Eyes from a training perspective and everything. Of course, they couldn't mention what happened in Sword Art Online 12 because they've not animated it yet. But I'm super happy that they did that, to be honest. I'm super happy they did it. And then you can see just Belle's VA also come back to life, basically, as well, with his voice acting, you know. Just generally, the inflections from this point onwards are much more brighter, much more powerful, much more stronger. And again, reiterating that whole point of what I said, the tone and range that Matsuoka-san had from the start to finish of this episode, extremely well done. And then of course he says, "You are the person I admire." Of course, it's fantastic. And then he obviously cooks Hayden a little bit. Well, I say cooks is a bit of a stretch here. He does take he is a lot more stronger in the scene, purely because he has the energy, he has the dedication, the desire to prove that he's not part of the Freya Familia, and he knows what to do basically against Hayden, which I think was fantastic. I'm really, really appreciative of that, of course, of what they did here. But I also found it extremely funny that when Belt says he is Belcranel, he's just like, "Nah, bruh, get cooked, bro. Get freaking cooked," and just kicks him in the stomach, which I loved a lot. But also Hayden talking here is like very funny, because he's like, "God damn it, man, this guy, bro." Now this scene at the end with Hermes is, again, I think the only place I have a bit of a nitpick on, realistically. And it's a little bit of a nitpick because it was in the light novel, but they didn't adapt it into the anime for some reason. And I have a couple of theories as to why, which I'll break down a little bit more in cut contents. But basically, along with whatever we have here, where Hermes is realizing that he's stuck in a loop, and this is not the first time he's realized he's stuck in a loop. He's realized it multiple times. It's just like how Aina was, how Aina had her memories removed and adjusted, right? Hermes here is the same, basically, where he's like, he remembers stuff, loses his memory, remembers stuff, loses his memory, and it happens again and again and again. And the reason why he realized it is because he kept getting a message from Zeus in the light novels. Now in the anime they didn't actually mention it. I think there's a couple of reasons as to why, because of course when the Zeus thing does get brought up in the light novel, they also talk about what happened in Gnosis, which is of course Sword of Ratoria content, and also just generally as well, they would have to also backtrack a little bit and talk about the previous times Zeus contacted Hermes, which they don't really talk about too much. I mean, the thing is, right, if we could, I wonder, actually, no. I was gonna say, maybe if somebody could translate that text, maybe that actually is the letter from Zeus, but obviously people wouldn't know about it, of course, right? People would have to actively, like, translate that, the notes that are on that pin thing, basically, right? But I really like this, because again, it shows actually how smart Hermes is, and I'm glad that they didn't cut this scene at all, to be honest, because it shows that, Hermes is realizing that he's losing his memories. He's obviously done his plans to how to, kind of counteract that in some way, shape, or form by, leaving key words with his, his family members, I think this was extremely well done. And the way he just, did the whole detective thing was extremely well done. IMO. The light novel did a great job, but seeing it in animation was amazing, honestly. It was amazing. Honestly, it's so good to see. It's so good to see this. But the funniest thing I loved was obviously what happens here, basically. Because the funny thing is, okay, the funny thing is the light novel did this differently. The light novel did it. The light novel did it where he says, "I love you" to Asfi in a very soft tone. But here he just screams it out, "I love you, baby. It's all my fault." That's too funny, man. It's so funny. And then of course we come to the scene where Hestia finally gives the letter to Hermes and says, it basically says, if I'm not mistaken, "Make a hearth out of Aurario." Now this is going to be how everything kickstarts, because obviously, if you guys don't know, at the end of the episode, the next episode's title is Altar of the Sacred Flame Vesta. Now we know that where this is going. So the firewood, obviously, that Hermes has been collecting for Uranos is so that we can get a hearth made, basically, by Hestia. So Hestia is going to use her power, it seems like, to try and combat Freya, most likely. This is what's going to most likely go down. We'll have to wait and see in the next episode, but the title of this next episode, and just generally what they're doing with the firewood, and of course, the last thing that they talk about making a hearth out of Aurario, it seems like it's setting up that way. Now, I'm very excited to see how they do that in the next episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. I like this episode, man. I really did. I genuinely enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, I think for me, when it comes to the anime, right? For me, what I want to see more so than anything is good animation, which I think JC staff can do really well with, of course, right? When they want to lock in a little bit, they can lock in. The voice acting is amazing, of course, right? And that's what I want to hear as well. I want to hear the voice acting. I want to see what they can do there. And just generally, I want to see them hit the main points of the season well. And in my opinion, like I said, this episode did all of that, in all honesty. Now, of course, I'll talk about the cut contents and what I think that they could have added a little bit more and what they removed and stuff, and what I think they could have done better. But this episode is just far and away clear of episode 7, of course, right? Like I said, I think this is my personal favorite episode so far, personally. Do I think that it beats episode 4 handily? No, I don't think it beats episode 4 handily. I think it's very, very close. And to be honest, I think with time, I might still say episode 4's reveal and everything is a little bit better. But this episode is still very, very good. But no, I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'm really hoping they do a good job, because it is the finale of Volume 17. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this breakdown. And of course, let me know your thoughts of the episode itself. If you have any questions in regards to some of the things that were brought up and stuff, right, in terms of just generally the contents and stuff, I've tried addressing a lot of the points made, right, in terms of, you know, what's happening and why, you know, things are going down the way they are, and of course how everything works, like Mia, for example, and all. Let me know what you guys think, of course. But yeah, obviously let me know your theories on Hayden. Let me know what do you think is going to happen in the next episode. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.